In the kingdom of Babylon, the shadow of the king cast a darkness over the land. It was a time of gold, and a time of fear. People, nations, and languages, hear the command of your king. At the sound of the horn and the harp, you shall fall down. Whoever does not fall down and worship this image shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. In Babylon, there was only one law: worship the king's idols or face the fire. But 3 men refused to bend. In the ancient heart of Babylon, a kingdom built on power and spectacle, King Nebuchadnezzar reigned supreme. His word was law, his ego a monument. And to honor that ego, he commissioned a statue unlike any the world had ever seen. 90 feet of polished gold, gleaming under the harsh Babylonian sun, a blinding testament to his own perceived divinity. He commanded every official, every governor, every person from every corner of his vast empire to gather on the plain of Dura. An order was sent out, a royal decree that echoed from the palace walls to the furthest provinces. When the music played, the symphony of horns, flutes, harps, and lyres, every single person was to bow down and worship the golden image. The penalty for defiance was absolute and terrifying: to be thrown alive into a blazing furnace, a horrific end designed to extinguish any spark of rebellion. The day arrived, and the plain was a sea of humanity. The air was thick with anticipation and the smell of dust. Then the music began. A cacophony of instruments erupted, and as one, the massive crowd fell to the ground. A wave of submission washed over the plain. Thousands of faces pressed into the dirt, a spectacle of unified worship, or perhaps unified fear. But amidst the sea of prostration, 3 figures remained standing, tall, defiant, and resolute. Their names were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were young Hebrew men, captives brought to Babylon, who had risen through the ranks of the court due to their wisdom and integrity. But their loyalty had a limit, and that limit was their God. They would not, could not, bow to a golden idol, even if it meant defying the most powerful man on earth. Their defiance did not go unnoticed. Certain Chaldean astrologers, rivals in the court, saw their opportunity. They rushed to the king, their voices dripping with malice and false reverence. "O king, live forever." They began, their flattery a thin veil for the poison they were about to deliver. "You issued a decree that everyone must bow to the golden image. But there are certain Jews you appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon: Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They neither serve your gods nor worship the golden image you have set up." Nebuchadnezzar's pride, as vast as his empire, was wounded. His face contorted with fury. He commanded the 3 men be brought before him at once. They were dragged from the plain and thrown before the throne. The king, his voice trembling with rage, confronted them. "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image? I will give you one more chance. When the music plays, if you are ready to fall down and worship, very well. But if you do not, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. And what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" The threat hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The king was offering them an out, a chance to save their lives with a single simple act of compromise. The entire court watched, holding its breath. What would they do? Would they bend to the king's will and live, or hold to their conviction and face the fire? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood before the raging monarch, their expressions calm, their resolve unshaken. They looked the king in the eye, and their reply has echoed through the centuries as a testament to unwavering faith. "O Nebuchadnezzar," they said, their voices clear and steady, "we have no need to answer you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. But even if he does not, those 5 words changed everything. Their faith wasn't a transaction. It wasn't based on a guarantee of rescue. Their commitment was to their God, regardless of the outcome. They would be faithful even unto death. The king's rage turned into a white-hot inferno. He was so incensed that the very expression on his face changed. He ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual. The flames leaped from its mouth, so intense that the air around it shimmered. He commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up the 3 men and throw them into the blaze. The soldiers bound them tightly, still in their robes, their tunics, and their hats, and dragged them to the furnace. The heat was so extreme that the flames lashed out and killed the powerful soldiers who were carrying them. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were cast into the heart of the fiery furnace. For a moment, there was silence. The crowd, the king, the court, everyone stared at the roaring fire, expecting to see nothing but ash. The story should have ended there, a grim warning to all who would dare defy the king. But then, something impossible happened. Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet, his eyes wide with astonishment and terror. He turned to his advisors, his voice frantic. "Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire?" They replied, "Certainly, your majesty." The king shouted, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." He crept closer to the mouth of the furnace, the heat scorching his face. He peered into the impossible scene. There they were, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, walking freely amidst the flames. And with them was another figure, a radiant being whose presence seemed to cool the very fire that surrounded them. The fire had no power over their bodies. Not a hair on their heads was singed, their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. The only things that had burned were the ropes that had bound them. Humbled and terrified, the king called out, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." And so they walked out of the furnace, completely unharmed, before the astonished eyes of the entire Babylonian court. The satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors crowded around them, touching their clothes, staring in disbelief. The miracle was undeniable. In that moment, the proud king was broken. He saw a power far greater than his own, a God who could walk with his people through the fire. Nebuchadnezzar raised his voice, not in anger this time, but in awe. "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants." They trusted in him and defied the king's command, willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. The king then issued a new decree. Any person from any nation or language who said anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would be dealt with severely, for no other god can save in this way. And he promoted the 3 brave men to even higher positions in the province of Babylon. Their story is a powerful reminder that true faith isn't about avoiding the fire, but about who walks with you through it. It is a testament to the courage that comes from conviction and the incredible power of standing for what you believe in, even when you're standing alone. The music had stopped. The air grew thick and silent, a stark contrast to the joyous celebration just moments before. The only sound left was the distant, hungry crackling of the furnace, its flames reaching for the sky. Guards, their faces grim, shoved 3 men forward. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood before the throne, their hands bound but their heads held high. An unnerving peace settled on their features. King Nebuchadnezzar was a storm of fury. His face, once flushed with pride, was now purple with rage. He descended from his throne, closing the distance until he was inches from their faces, his voice a low, venomous hiss. "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Is it true that you refuse to serve my gods? That you defy my command to worship the golden image I have created?" He didn't wait for an answer. He spun around, a shaking finger pointing dramatically toward a massive brick kiln in the distance. A column of black smoke billowed from it, a dark stain against the clear blue sky. The heat could be felt even from here. "I will give you one more chance," he boomed, his voice echoing across the silent plaza. "Fall down and worship the image I have made. Do it now. But if you do not," his voice dropped to a menacing growl, "you shall be cast this very hour into the heart of that burning, fiery furnace. And then we will see what God is there that can deliver you out of my hands." The threat hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The crowd held its breath. All eyes were on the three men, expecting them to tremble, to beg, to finally give in. But they didn't. They didn't flinch. They didn't even glance at the terrifying furnace. Their gaze remained fixed, steady, and unwavering on the furious king. Then, in voices that were calm and unified, they spoke, their words cutting through the tension. "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to defend ourselves before you in this matter." A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. The disrespect was astounding. The king's eyes widened in disbelief. They continued, their courage a tangible force. "If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will rescue us from your majesty's hand." They paused, letting the weight of their faith settle. The wind shifted, blowing the thick smoke from the furnace directly behind them, framing them against a backdrop of fire and darkness. It was a picture of defiance, of faith against fury. Then came the final, unshakable declaration. "But even if he does not," they said, their voices ringing with absolute conviction, "we want you to know, Your Majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image you have set up." They chose the fire over the idol. They chose their God over the king. In that moment of ultimate pressure, faced with an unimaginable end, their faith did not waver. It became their shield. Nebuchadnezzar, utterly stupefied by their defiance, could only stare. His offer of mercy had been thrown back in his face. His power had been challenged not by an army, but by the quiet, resolute faith of three men. The confrontation had reached its peak, and the king's rage, already at a boil, was about to explode into a fury unlike any Babylon had ever seen. The furnace awaited its victims, but the stage was set for a miracle that would echo through eternity. The king's face twisted. All the pride, all the mercy, just vanished. In its place was pure, raw fury. He shot up from his throne so fast it shook, his voice a scream that ripped through the court. "Heat the furnace, 7 times hotter than ever before. Bind them now." The command was absolute, a raging storm unleashed. Immediately, the roar of the fire swelled, growing into a thunderous jet engine scream. Soldiers scrambled, heaving wood and oil into the furnace. The opening glowed a blinding, white-hot orange, so intense the very air around it shimmered and warped. This wasn't just a fire. It was a hungry beast being fed. The strongest guards seized Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They didn't even have time to remove their coats or hats. Heavy ropes were wrapped around their hands and feet, binding them completely. The king's command was urgent. The furnace was a raging monster, and there was no time to waste. The mightiest soldiers in the Babylonian army dragged the 3 bound men towards the furnace's terrifying mouth. But as they got close, ready to hurl their prisoners into the inferno, the heat lashed out. Flames, white-hot and furious, leaped from the opening and consumed the guards in an instant. They screamed and fell dead, scorched by the very fire they had stoked. In the chaos, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego still bound, tumbled forward over the edge. There was a heavy thud as they landed in the heart of the blaze. And so, these three men fell bound into the middle of the burning, fiery furnace. The king's face twisted. The pride, the arrogance, it all melted away, replaced by pure, unadulterated fury. He shot up from his throne so fast it seemed to shake. Any hint of mercy was gone. Only rage remained. He screamed, his voice raw and out of control. "Heat the furnace! 7 times hotter than it has ever been heated. Bind them now." The royal command echoed through the court, urgent and absolute. Immediately, the king's servants sprang into action. Soldiers rushed to the massive furnace, the heart of Babylon's industry, now repurposed as an instrument of terror. They began to stoke the fire with a frantic energy, throwing in load after load of wood, dousing it with flammable oil. The roar of the fire intensified, growing from a low rumble to a deafening blast, like a modern jet engine at full throttle. The air itself began to shimmer and distort around the furnace opening, which glowed a blinding, white-hot orange. The heat was so intense, it was a physical force, pushing back against anyone who dared to approach. Meanwhile, the strongest guards in the king's army seized Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These 3 men, who had stood so defiantly just moments before, offered no resistance. They remained calm, their faces set with a serene resolve. The guards were rough, efficient. They wrapped heavy, coarse ropes around the men's hands and feet, binding them tightly. They didn't even bother to strip them of their clothes. They were bound in their full attire, their coats, their trousers, their turbans, and all their other garments. They were being prepared for their execution, treated not as men, but as fuel for the king's wrath. The furnace was now a raging beast, a swirling vortex of flame and heat. The king's most valiant soldiers, the mightiest men in his entire army, were tasked with the final act. They grabbed the 3 bound prisoners and began to drag them toward the terrifying glowing mouth of the kiln. The heat was almost unbearable, even from a distance. The soldiers strained, their muscles bulging, as they hauled their human cargo closer and closer to the edge. They were just steps away from fulfilling the king's brutal decree. But the king's command was so urgent and the fire so extraordinarily hot that the furnace itself turned on its masters. As the guards got close enough to throw the 3 men in, the intense heat became a weapon. Flames, like fiery serpents, leaped out from the opening with an explosive force. The soldiers screamed, a short, sharp cry of agony, as the superheated air and licking flames consumed them instantly. They were the first victims of the furnace that day, falling dead on the spot, their own strength and valor no match for the inferno they had helped create. With their executioners suddenly gone, the 3 bound men were left helpless and alone at the very precipice of the fire. The momentum of being dragged forward carried them over the edge. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego tumbled, still tightly bound, into the roaring heart of the furnace. There was a heavy thud as their bodies hit the floor of the kiln, a sound almost lost in the overwhelming roar of the flames. And so, these 3 men fell, bound and seemingly without hope, into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. From his balcony, King Nebuchadnezzar watched the thick black smoke billow into the sky. The heat was so intense, even from a distance, that it felt like standing at the gates of the sun. He leaned forward, a grim satisfaction on his face, expecting to see nothing but ash and bone. But as the smoke swirled and parted for a moment, his eyes widened in disbelief. He gripped the stone railing, his knuckles turning white, a sudden chill running down his spine despite the blistering heat. The roar of the fire was a constant, deafening beast, but underneath it, a new sound emerged, a low, powerful hum, like a celestial chord being struck. The king's voice, once booming with authority, was now a trembling, astonished whisper. "Wait." Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire?" From the shadows behind him, his counselors, their faces hidden but their fear palpable, confirmed his words. "True, O king," they replied, their voices laced with confusion. Nebuchadnezzar shot to his feet, stumbling in his haste. He pointed a shaking finger toward the heart of the inferno, his voice now rising in a crescendo of wonder and terror. "Look, look! I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire. They are not hurt." And he was right. Down in the furnace, the ropes that had bound Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were gone, turned to dust by the flames. But their bodies, their clothes, even the hairs on their heads, were completely untouched. The fire that could melt stone had no power over them. From inside the furnace, the view was otherworldly. The flames were like liquid walls of orange, blue, and white light, swirling with impossible violence. Yet in the very center, there was a circle of perfect calm, a sanctuary within the storm. There, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were walking. They were not screaming in agony or desperately trying to escape. They were walking slowly, their hands raised not in surrender, but in praise. They were unbound, not just from their ropes, but from all fear. And they were not alone. Walking with them was a 4th figure. This being was taller than the others, and he glowed with a light that outshone the fire itself. His face was like lightning, radiating pure power and serene authority. The king, watching from above, could only whisper in utter awe, his royal ego shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. "And the form of the 4th," he breathed, "is like the Son of God." As if hearing the king's whispered revelation, the 4th man turned his head slightly, his gaze piercing through the flames, right to the king's soul. The fire did not attack him. It seemed to bow before him, its fury tamed in his presence. Beside this divine protector, the 3 friends walked in perfect peace, their faith rewarded in a way no one could have ever imagined. In the very place the king had intended for their execution, they found their salvation. Where the most powerful man on earth sent death, the God of heaven sent a Savior. In their darkest, most fiery trial, they discovered they were not, and had never been, alone. As King Nebuchadnezzar watched, his heart pounded with a mix of terror and awe. The figure of a 4th man, shining with divine light, walked among the 3 Hebrews in the heart of the inferno. The king, once a figure of absolute power, was now humbled. He scrambled down from his high vantage point, his royal robes trailing behind him. His guards tried to restrain him, but he pushed past them. His eyes locked on the impossible scene unfolding in the furnace. The heat was so intense, it was like standing at the mouth of a volcano, yet he pushed forward. He shielded his face, the scorching air stinging his skin, and cried out, his voice filled with a desperate urgency he had never known. "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego," he shouted, his tone no longer commanding, but pleading, "Servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." At the king's command, a hush fell over the entire assembly. The crackling roar of the fire seemed to dim, replaced by the collective held breath of thousands. Then, from the very center of the raging, swirling flames, the 3 men walked forward. They moved with a calm and steady pace, not rushing, not flinching. They stepped through the wall of fire as easily as one might step through a curtain. As they crossed the threshold from the searing furnace onto the cool ground of the plain, the fire behind them roared back to life, a testament to its deadly power. But the men themselves were completely untouched. The music, the shouting, the very noise of the world faded into a stunned, absolute silence. Only the soft whisper of the wind could be heard, blowing across the silent, astonished crowd. In that moment of profound stillness, the spell broke. The princes, governors, captains, and counselors, the very men who had condemned the 3 to death, surged forward. They weren't hostile now. They were overcome with sheer, unadulterated wonder. They crowded around Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, reaching out with trembling hands. They touched their robes, expecting to feel charred fabric, but found them soft and whole. They gently ran fingers through their hair, looking for any sign of scorching, but found none. They leaned in close, expecting the acrid stench of smoke and burnt flesh, but there was nothing. The fire, a force that could melt metal and turn stone to dust, had no power over their bodies. Not a single hair on their heads was singed. Their coats were not even discolored. There was not the faintest smell of fire on them. It was as if they had just returned from a pleasant walk in a cool garden, not a journey into the heart of a blazing furnace. Seeing this undeniable miracle up close, King Nebuchadnezzar, the most powerful man in the known world, fell to his knees. But this time, he wasn't bowing before his 90-foot golden statue. He was on the hard ground, his face turned upward, not to an idol of his own making, but toward the three men and the invisible, all-powerful God they served. Tears streamed down his face, carving paths through the dust and soot. He looked at the vast crowd, his voice booming with a newfound conviction, a proclamation that would echo through the ages. "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego," he declared, his voice thick with emotion, "who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him." He then declared a new decree to the whole empire. Anyone who spoke against this God would be punished. The three men, who had been thrown into the fire as criminals, were promoted to even higher positions in the province of Babylon. As the king's words hung in the air, the massive golden statue stood silent in the background. Moments before, it had been the centerpiece of the entire event, a symbol of Nebuchadnezzar's absolute authority. Now, under the light of this incredible miracle, it looked small, dull, and lifeless. It was just metal, cold, and powerless. The real power, the real glory, was not in the gold, but in the unwavering faith of three men who stood tall and united. They had chosen to trust their God, even unto death, and their God had delivered them in a way no one could have imagined. As the king himself voiced over the scene, a truth settled over the plains of Dura. There is no other God that can deliver like this. The story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego serves as a powerful reminder. They faced the flames, but they did not face them alone. In the kingdom of Babylon, and in our own lives, sometimes the fire only serves to burn away the ropes that bind you, setting you free. Their victory was not in escaping the fire, but in the faith that walked with them through it.